This is Sports and Exercise Science Research Methods Project 4.1 by Joey Webben. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the legal and ethical considerations that you should take into place when you are conducting research methods within sports science. Legal and ethical issues. Prior to 1947, there were no accepted codes of conduct for human experimentation. However, after the war had finished, the Nuremberg Code was made in 1947, and then after that, in 1946, the World Medical Association created the Declaration of Helsinki. The Nuremberg Code was made in 1947 after the war finished, as a result of the Nuremberg trial. The Nuremberg trial took place because people wanted to charge all of the Nazis who had killed and harmed people in the war. They found that the Nazis had used Jewish people to experiment on. In one experiment, they submerged people in different temperatures to see at what point they would become unconscious. These prisoners were subjected to harm. As a result of the trials, they created a list of 10 points, which is called the Nuremberg Code, that you must abide by if you are carrying out any research on humans. Some of the rules that were included in the code were: the experiment should be conducted to avoid all unnecessary physical and mental harm. The degree of risk to be taken should never exceed that determined by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved. There were also other studies that went against the legal and ethical considerations that should be in place for the research study were Zimbardo's and Milgram's study. In Milgram's study, it was a study of obedience. The participant was told he had to shock someone every time they answered the question wrong, all the way up to 450 volts, which is enough to kill a man. This went against a lot of legal and ethical rules that should be in place when taking part in this experiment. I will explain what these rules are later on in the presentation. When you are carrying out research, there are now strict legal and ethical rules that you must abide by when you are looking to carry out a research experiment. You must ensure that they are legal, which is basically working within the boundaries of the law and do not go against the law, and they must be ethical, which are moral principles that govern a person's behaviour of conducting or of an activity. It decides what's right and what's wrong with an experiment and ensures that no physical harm can take place. Now, there are certain steps which will require ethical clearance for a study to take place. The first stage of this is having your research checked by the BASIS Code of Conduct and making sure that it is not unethical in any way. The second stage is sending it to an application independent specialist panel. These are people who are specialists in the area that you are researching. These people will check to see if the study is ethical and legal and will pass it down to the next stage. This next stage is where your research application is reviewed in the risk-benefit panel and will check if the risk outweighs the benefits of the study. If the risks outweigh the benefits of the study may be called off and they say, no, you're not allowed to do this, or if it's the other way around, then they may allow the study and pass it down the stages. The final stage is to check if everyone involved in the research is protected. This is the researcher, the participant, just anyone involved with the study really. After all of these steps, it is now passed down to the review committee, and these can grant you ethical clearance. If there is nothing wrong with your study, they will grant you ethical clearance with minor amendments. They may grant you clearance if they see it's all fine, or they may not grant it at all and just reject the study full stop. The BASIS Code of Conduct is a conduct that you should abide by when you are looking to conduct research on humans. The BASIS Code of Conduct is the British Association of Sport and Exercise Science and is the professional body of sports and exercise science in the UK. They allow research to go ahead. Current professional bodies and every researcher should abide by them. They have a code of conduct that everyone should follow to allow their research to go ahead. This includes getting ethical clearance. The study needs to seek and obtain and recognise approval from a recognised body. An example of this is the NHS Researcher Ethics Committee. They also require you to have informed consent, which is a legal requirement. They should tell the participant everything about the experiment and inform them about what they are doing. It also includes confidentiality, which is to preserve confidential information that is acquired in the experiment. It also includes data protection and responsibility. This is where the participants' individual data must be carried out in accordance to the Data Protection Act of 1948, and obtaining the data must be unbiased and responsible. The code of conduct must also include the competence, which is where the researcher must understand their limits when it comes to their qualifications expected and experienced, and must operate within these limits. The final one is professional conduct, which means being responsible and sensible within the experiment and ensuring the participant is protected. One thing that the researcher did well within this scenario is that they gained informed consent from the participant. This allowed the participant to know exactly what they're doing and gave them a fuller understanding of what they are doing within the research. Another good thing that they did within the scenario is they allowed the participant to volunteer, which also helped them to have an understanding of what they are doing as they have volunteered for this, and they have basically said they know what we're doing and we are willing to do this. However, one thing that they did bad is that they deceived the participant. The participant was deceived by the research because he did not tell the participant what the substance was that they were taking. Therefore, they have no understanding that it would increase their inflexibility. Therefore, they may not have worked as hard as they did not know what the pill was going to do for them. Therefore, it could affect their results. One way that they can improve this is by carrying out a debrief. A debrief is where the researcher talks to the participant and asks them how the study went and tells them whether or not they have been deceived and informed them of what has actually happened. The consequence of not giving informed consent could lead you to being fined, as the participant has been at risk, and it is unfair. Another thing that they did not do is they did not do a debrief. This is bad because the participant has walked away from the study not fully understanding what they have done, and does not give that they do not understand what's fully happened within the experiment. The consequence is that it may cause emotional harm, as they do, as I said, they do not know what they have just done, and they may be upset or emotionally scarred by it. And one way that you can improve that is by obviously doing a debrief, which I've explained. Another thing that they did badly within the experiment is that they did not perform health and safety checks before doing the experiment. They did not do a health and screening questionnaire, which they needed to do because they needed to check whether any of the participants were allergic to any of the ingredients within the pill, and which they were, so therefore they had to be rushed to hospital. The consequences of this is that the researcher could be reprimanded or suspended, or they may just be given ethical training on what you have to do in order to conduct a safe experiment. One way that they can correct this is by performing a health screening questionnaire, which will prevent any participant from being harmed or injured, as within this scenario, for example, the participant who got rushed to hospital from the pill may not have been able to take part in the experiment as she was allergic to something within the drug. One thing that the researcher did well within this scenario is before the experiment started, he made the participants sign a participant disclaimer, which protected them from being able to sue them if anything went wrong with the experiment. Another thing they did well is that when the participant said that they were feeling unwell and feeling ill and did not want to carry on, they let him go and did not force him to carry on. They allowed him the right to withdraw from the experiment whenever they wanted. Another thing that they did well was that they carried out a risk assessment, which made sure that the environment that they are carrying out the experiment in was safe and the facilities used were adequate. The idea of a risk assessment is obviously to reduce as much injury as possible and harm. However, one of the bad things about this study is that the researcher gave encouragement to one of the participants when they were running with the Powerade. This would have made them probably want to run faster and would have improved their time. Their time may have been quicker when running with the Powerade, which therefore they would have tried to claim that would it have been down to the Powerade giving them energy and increasing performance, where in fact it may have been because they were being encouraged and motivated to run faster. This would make the research scientifically inaccurate. This is scientific misconduct, as they have had an effect on the results. As a result of this, they may lose professional or research credibility, as they have tried to affect the results and claim that it's a fault, claim that it's because of their Powerade drink that's making them go faster, whereas it is not because of that. One way that they can stop this is conduct the experiment properly and do not use the findings to promote this product, as they are false, and also just carry it out without the encouragement. Within this scenario, one thing that the research did well is that they ensure that they made the parents sign a consent form and did not disclose any of their personal and confidential information with anyone else, and kept the data protected that they got from the research and did not expose the participants in any way. However, one thing that the research did bad is that he separated the groups and judged them all by ability, which will have knocked the person's confidence who is given in the lower category. This is not professional at all, and will lead to our participants feeling emotionally harmed, and could lead to the researcher go on ethical training, as they are not being professional at all and are not taking care of the participant like they are meant to. Another thing that they did badly is they continuously mocked the less skilled participants throughout the experiment and mostly stayed around the higher skilled participants. This is very poor researcher responsibility, as the researcher is meant to look after all of the participants and be professional and supervise when they are carrying out the study. As a result of this, they may lose their BASES accreditation and not be able to perform any more research at all. One way that they can improve this is by being professional in the study and taking care of the participants and ensuring that they are safe and emotionally stable throughout the whole thing. Thank you for listening.